We've hit the halfway mark of the Super Netball season, and what a round it was to celebrate, one filled with culture, clashes, and compelling storylines. First Nations round took center stage over the weekend, shining a light on connection, unity and progress. Positioned deliberately ahead of National Reconciliation Week, the round aims to create genuine conversations about how Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians can walk together in sport. And with the sights, sounds, and ceremony of the weekend, it's fair to say it struck a powerful chord. The NSW Swifts are flying. Unbeaten after 7 rounds, they have now taken down every other team in the competition. Their latest victory came at the expense of the Sunshine Coast Lightning, 70-62. It was a battle at the top, and the Swifts showed once again they are serious premiership contenders. The West Coast Fever continue to build momentum, defeating the Giants 75-66. Jhaniele Fowler-Nembhard was immense yet again, clinching her 4th Player of the Match award for the season. In doing so, she became the first shooter in Super Netball history to reach the monumental milestone of 9,000 career goals. A towering achievement by one of the game's greatest. The Melbourne Vixens kept the Queensland Firebirds rooted to the bottom of the ladder with a commanding 70-52 win. That's now 5 straight losses for the Firebirds, and concerns are mounting in Brisbane. Meanwhile, the Adelaide Thunderbirds bounced back into form with a gritty 66-59 win over the Melbourne Mavericks. What made their performance even more significant was their choice to take on an Indigenous name for the round. In consultation with Kurna elder Uncle Mickey O'Brien, the Thunderbirds were renamed Tarntanya Karntu, a proud nod to the land and language on which they play. It was a powerful moment, and a precedent we hope to see followed by more clubs in future First Nations rounds. If you missed the action, don't worry, we're here to bring you up to speed with all the major talking points from the round. All eyes were on Grace Nweke. The Silver Fern-turned Swift has brought serious firepower to the NSW circle, and this week's matchup had everyone talking. Nweke versus Courtney Bruce, one of the great modern rivalries of the Constellation Cup, was finally happening in Super Netball. When the Swifts secured Nweke's signature, the netball world sat up. She turned her back on national selection to test herself in the world's most physical netball competition. She knew it would be a tough road, but it's the kind of battleground where careers are forged. Until now, we hadn't seen the Nweke-Bruce showdown in Super Netball. Bruce, recovering from injury, was managed carefully through the early rounds. But round 7 brought the fireworks. That said, Lightning coach Belinda Reynolds made us wait just a bit longer, starting with Ash Irvin at goalkeeper. It was 10 minutes before Bruce stepped onto the court as a rolling sub, and from there, the atmosphere shifted. The physicality skyrocketed. Nweke was jostled, shoved, grabbed. Irvin, Bruce and Tara Hincliffe rotated through her, with Bruce bringing a level of physical presence that few players in the world can match. Despite the constant attention, Nweke stood tall. She scored 50 goals at an astonishing 89% accuracy. The pressure was immense, but she thrived. Bruce, in contrast, registered no gains and was stood out of play 9 times. Her stint directly opposite Nweke lasted just 10 minutes before she was moved to goal defense to allow Irvin's height back into the mix. Still, Bruce found ways to disrupt. Floating forward, dropping back, getting into Nweke's head. It worked, to a degree. Because while Nweke won the matchup and the Swifts won the game, the toll it took was visible. In her post-match interview, the towering shooter looked emotional, possibly even close to tears. It wasn't joy, but frustration. The physical contest had rattled her. She missed 6 goals. She had 4 general play turnovers. As the game wore on, the errors crept in. Bruce had made an impact, even if the stat sheet didn't show it. But this is why Nweke is here. She's here to grow, to learn how to deal with that next level of physical pressure. If she can weather these storms, she's not just the Swifts' best hope of a premiership, she'll be a stronger, smarter, and more resilient athlete for it. Elsewhere, it's starting to feel like Groundhog Day for a couple of struggling teams. The Queensland Firebirds and the Giants are both stuck in the same mid to low table mire they found themselves in last season. In the case of the Firebirds, some changes have been made, personnel shuffled, a new coach brought in. But after 9 rounds in 2024 they had 2 wins. This year, they're still winless. For the Giants, it's even more bleak. This is statistically their worst season ever. 1 win in 7 rounds. They had 2 wins at this point last year and the year before. Now, they've gone backwards again. And with players and staff coming off contract, it's crunch time. A few names are safe. Jamie Lee Price, Sophie Dwyer, Erin O'Brien, and Jodie Ann Ward are locked in until 2026. But coach Julie Fitzgerald is out of contract. She's the most experienced coach in the league, but perhaps now is the time for fresh blood and a new voice. Co-captain Price has indicated she wants to move to Melbourne to be closer to her partner, AFL player Harry Perryman. If she leaves, and Fitzgerald departs, and Joe Harden decides to retire, who's left to carry on the legacy? The Giants played 2 grand finals in their first 9 years. Now they're barely competing. As questions swirl over their future, the Firebirds are dealing with their own identity issues. They were the only team not to take up the option of a full 11-player roster in 2025. A surprising call, considering the struggles they're having with depth and performance. And it's here we arrive at an uncomfortable truth about the league. While the dresses for First Nations round were stunning and the welcome to country ceremonies deeply moving, the actual Indigenous player representation on court was once again glaringly low. Just one Indigenous player currently competes in Super Netball, Lisa Mimi of the Firebirds. Years earlier, her sister Gemma Mimi also stood alone in the league. For the past couple of seasons, Donnell Wallam brought that number to 2, but she's now playing in New Zealand. Let that sink in. Across 8 professional teams, in a country with a rich and proud Indigenous sporting culture, just one Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander player features. And that's despite an increase in squad sizes. It's a statistic that should sit uneasily with the sport. The artwork, ceremonies and symbolism of First Nations round are meaningful, but action needs to follow. If we truly want to elevate and support Indigenous talent in netball, it starts with pathways, opportunity, and investment. Lisa Mimi is doing the work of many. She's more than a player, she's a trailblazer, a role model, and a voice. But she shouldn't have to carry that burden alone. As the second half of the season looms, there are stories everywhere. The Swifts chasing a perfect season. Nweke growing under pressure. The Fever and Vixens building. The Giants and Firebirds searching for answers. And in the background, the echoes of First Nations round remind us that netball, like sport as a whole, has the power to do more than entertain. It can educate, unite, and inspire.